Chanting Nation for meditation. Subscribe today for all types of artis, mantras, stotras, and don't forget to press the bell icon.
Jaya Jaya Raghavir Samarth Ha. The Dasbodh by Sadguru Shri Samarth Ramdas Swami Maharaj. The Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita kept the spirit of spiritualism alive in India. In Maharashtra, the same responsibility was taken up by the Jnaneshwari and the Dasbodh. The writers of these two books, Saint Jnaneshwar and Shri Samarth Ramdas Swami, were not only great sages, but worshippers of the highest order as well. Both had not only experienced the Parbrahma, but had become the Parbrahma themselves. Both of them were extremely rich in altars of spiritual experiences, which they showered upon the posterity. This was the need of the hour, as the less knowledgeable always tend to remain in the myth, that the only real thing about themselves is their body, whereas these saints knew, that body is an illusion, just like the rest of the universe, and the only real thing is the Parbrahma, which they themselves were. This realization was enough for them, but they had a larger goal, and that was to pass on this knowledge to the others for their spiritual uplift. They spent their lives for this most noble cause. Shree Samarth Ramdas Swami during his lifetime must have helped thousands with his invaluable advice to solve their problems. He did it tirelessly, and of course without any expectation. He wanted the people not only to live a good lifestyle, but also to follow the path of spiritualism for their ultimate benefit. It is a matter of conjecture how many took up the latter cause. Despite this, he didn't flinch for a while, and went about his divine work with the same zest. It is a tribute to the sage, that although most of his unwritten work has been forgotten with the passage of time, yet the written works like his Dasbodh and the others are still held in high esteem by the common man, and those who are on the path of spiritualism alike. A brief outline of the biography of Shri Samarth Ramdas Swami. Shri Samarth Ramdas Swami, hereinafter referred to as Shri Samarth, was a sage of the highest order as compared to all the saints throughout the world. If one considers his knowledge of the Parbrahma, his unflinching worship, his being an unparalleled guru, his literature, and the tremendous adulation he received from the masses, not only during his times but even now. He was born in a village Jamb, to Mr. Suryaji and Mrs. Ranoobai Thosar. His original name was Narayan. He lost his father at the age of 8, which turned him into an introvert. After a lot of introspection, he finally arrived at the thought of the God, at that tender age. He used to be engrossed in these thoughts and try and find out the ways to meet the God. Then at the age of 12 years, Lord Ram himself appeared in front of him, and advised him to count the 13-lettered Ram Tarak mantra, 108 times at least once a day. Then Lord Ram accepted him as his own disciple. The Lord gave him a new name, by which he has been known ever since, Ramdas. Such a thing had never happened after Lord Ram, who was an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, left his mortal body, thousands of years ago. At the age of 12 years, while he was standing on the podium, during his marriage ceremony, he heard the Brahmins clattering loudly, "Beware." Immediately after hearing it, he knew what it meant, and just ran away from the scene, and went to the holy city, Nasik, where he started his worship of Lord Ram, which lasted for 12 years. He did it the hard way, many a times remaining without food or water, 4 days together. Every millisecond of this time he spent in the worship of Lord Ram. During this time he was constantly guided from within by greatest worshipper of Lord Ram, Hanuman. After 12 years of extensive sadhana, he got the blessings of Lord Ram again, and through him he also got the real knowledge, and then he embarked on a pilgrimage of most of the holy places of India, which he completed in 12 years, bare feet. After finishing the pilgrimage, he went back to Mahabaleshwar. Then at Mysore, he celebrated the birthday of Lord Ram, wherein thousands of people took part in the religious activities. He started gathering people around him, which was essential for his ultimate goal of establishing the Hindu religion, in its original form, which was in a shambles because of hundreds of years of Muslim rule in the country. Next year he found the statues of Lord Ram, in the deep waters of the river Krishna near Angapur. He built a temple at Chaifal, and installed them ceremoniously according to the Hindu tradition. He celebrated the birthday of Lord Ram that year at the newly built temple. The only Hindu king of any substance, who spent his whole life fighting the foreign Muslim rulers, Shri Shivaji Maharaj requested Shree Samarth to accept him as his disciple, and knowing him thoroughly well, Shree Samarth immediately consented. Shri Shivaji Maharaj from this time onwards always took Shree Samarth's advice in all the important matters. Then Shri Shivaji Maharaj, as a token of respect towards the Guru, offered Shree Samarth his whole kingdom, saying that he will look after it as only a caretaker, but it will belong to Shree Samarth. Shree Samarth was moved by this gesture, and praised Shri Shivaji Maharaj, but told him that anyhow he himself as Parbrahma, was the Atman, in Shri Shivaji Maharaj, and hence this wasn't required at all. Instead he asked Shri Shivaji Maharaj to prepare his empire's flag in the most sacred color in Hindu religion, maroon. If at all any, there will be very few parallels to such a disciple and guru. In the meanwhile, according to the wishes of Shree Samarth, 11 temples of Hanuman had been established, and the head priests appointed. Shree Samarth then went to Jamb, as his mother passed away. After returning back, he went to Karnataka on a religious upheaval mission. On way to Karnataka he established a math in Miraj, and appointed a woman disciple, Vinabai, as the head priestess. On reaching Tanjavur he was received by Vankoji Raja, the brother of Sri Shivaji Maharaj, who was the king of Tanjavur. He also told Shree Samarth of his desire to become his disciple, to which Shree Samarth consented. At Tanjavur one of the very revered religious figures, Pandit Raghunath, also became the disciple of Shree Samarth. After coming back to such Jungad, Shree Samarth started writing his epic, the Dasbodh. He also established a temple of the goddess at the Pratap fort. Shivaji Maharaj used to visit him frequently for advice, and seeing the qualities of this disciple of his, Shree Samarth told him the crux of the ultimate knowledge which one has to acquire to merge with the Parbrahma. He then completed the remaining chapters of the Dasbodh. After the death of Shivaji Maharaj, he wrote a letter to the heir to the throne, Sambhaji, Shivaji's son, which is considered a milestone by even today's political scientists. His job of the Hindu religious renaissance done, Shree Samarth left his mortal body, and finally united with the Parbrahma, ending a life which was so multifaceted, that without his mention, almost no field can be considered as complete. He left his mortal body at such Jungad, at the age of 73 years. Shree Samarth, the man and the personality. Shree Samarth had a very fair-colored skin and was a moderately built man. He used to exercise regularly and had a very fit body. He had sparkling eyes and a pointed nose. He sported a long beard. His whole body had an inherent inner glow. He always walked at a very brisk pace and could climb steep mountains very easily. He wore only a small cloth covering his perineum and extending up to the pubic symphysis. He carried a wooden Y-shaped object to rest his arms upon when he did his jap, and a metal container containing sacred water. While going out he had a bag hanging from his shoulders. During his younger days, he was never affected by changes in climate, but after getting old, he suffered from cough, for which he used to eat the traditional Indian pan, a herbal remedy. As he liked solitude and as he was a brisk walker and climber, he most of the times preferred to stay in the forests surrounding Sajanjit, or in the crevasses of the mountains. He was a very good swimmer, horse rider, and was proficient in warfare, as he could use all the weapons used at that time. Yet he was humility personified. He never spoke with a raised tone to anyone. If someone asked how the things were going, he would just say, as per Lord Ram's wishes. He won the hearts of thousands with his charming speech and total selflessness. He was very fond of kids and used to play with them. He liked to read and write. His memory was very sharp. He liked poetry and music and even was a nice singer. Despite his stern looks, he was a very kind-hearted person. Though according to his philosophy this world was an illusion, he was attracted towards nature, its bounties and beauties, and anything which was colossal. He wanted all men and women to acquire all that is best in life. Having toured all over India, he knew the customs in various parts and could speak many languages, prominent amongst them being Hindi, Marathi, Urdu, and of course Sanskrit. His observation was very minute and analytical. Himself being very kind and a workaholic, he naturally liked people having these qualities. He totally disliked idle people and literally abhorred them. He always said that you shouldn't harp on imaginary things, rather you should do whatever is worth doing and then tell others about it. He was a very kind-hearted man and therefore couldn't see anyone in grief. These qualities attracted thousands of people around him. He had an uncanny knack of quickly assessing the capacity of a person and used to assign a particular job accordingly. Most people used to be awed with this power of his. It is thus beyond any person to describe the person that Shree Samarth was. The real Shree Samarth. Shree Samarth was not only a human being, he had that extra in him which made him something special, which is a quality required to transform a man into a great person, a sage, or a saint, which he himself surely was, and was even beyond that. He knew to the hilt what his real form was, that is God, who resides in every individual, but, for this knowledge ordinary people have to spend many births as humans, and therefore was not only a saintly figure, but was in a way God himself, with all the knowledge of the Parbrahma, which was ingrained in him thoroughly. Right from the childhood, he was never interested in the material things, and the pleasures associated with them. He was constantly thinking from that early age about the unseen, micro-world inside the human body, not in the medical terms but from the spiritual point of view. Within no time he realized that it was God who resided deep inside him. From that point onwards, the only aim that beckoned him was untiring efforts to get to God, to know Him to the fullest extent, and finally to merge with Him while still alive, which he was able to do. This is far easier said than done. For this to become a reality, he strove very hard, and did sadhana for 12 years at Takli. Finally he got everything he was striving for, and thus became unified first with the God, and then with the Parbrahma. He was the epitome of ultimate knowledge, and he spread it in bounties to the people, who had the desire for it. The real Shree Samarth was a spiritual personality to the core, and all throughout his life, he almost always remained in the state of samadhi, though for the outside world he seemed like any other normal person. He had to do this, and maintain this fine balance, because of the socio-political circumstances prevalent during his times. People looked up to him as their leader, and hence he had to guide them, in times of impending disasters in someone's personal life, or for the society on the whole. He did it so tactfully that only those inclined towards spirituality knew that though he was doing his duties towards the society, his mind was never ever wavering from the state of samadhi. Such was his greatness, that despite carrying on the mantle of the society's burden deep inside him, he never forgot the God, and the Parbrahma, who were the creators of this universe. It was like someone doing great deeds, factually visible for others, but for him it is nothing rather than deep sleep. It may seem impossible for us the lesser mortals, but nothing is impossible for the great sages like Shree Samarth, and he proved it by his work during his lifetime. The society during Shree Samarth's period. The times were difficult for the Indians during Shree Samarth's period, as outsiders were ruling India. They had encroached upon the ancient and great Indian culture, and the repercussions of their authoritarian rule were devastating. Worse, the Indians themselves were following in their footsteps for petty gains, and those who dared raise their voice were thrown to the gallows. The Brahmins, who were supposedly the custodians of religion, were doing things which were considered unreligious. The warrior caste which was doing the job of protecting the country, and the people from any invaders were now taking pride in just serving the foreign rulers, and gaining small benefits for themselves. The traders were nothing short of traitors as they joined hands with the bureaucrats to meet their dirty business gains, not to talk about the common men, who were left bewildered by all this unforeseen transformation. The situation at best could be described by one word: chaotic. Hindu religion was there only for the name's sake. Everyone became too much selfish, which was neither good for him or for the society. The virtues of the society on the whole seemed to have vanished, and the vices gained the upper hand. Living itself had become so difficult that people wondered if death would be a better option. They were subjected to atrocities, not only by the rulers, but by the opportune goons, who thrived in this atmosphere. Every passing day seemed like an aeon for the common man. Surviving in such a chaotic situation was possible only for the haves, as the have-nots were at the mercy of all the evil forces working in unison. Shree Samarth was very much distressed with the plight of the people, and therefore, though he liked to remain in solitude most, he decided that he had to take a plunge in the social life, to ease out the miseries of the people. Shrimat Dasbodh. Dasbodh is an epic, written by Shree Samarth. Whatever he wanted to tell the world, he has conveyed through Dasbodh in a very candid manner. As per the tradition in his times, he wrote it in the Owi form. The contents of the book are very simple, straightforward, and easy to understand. It is so simple that sometimes it seems to be a prose. Dasbodh is divided in 20 main parts called as dashak, each of which contains 10 subparts, which are called as samases. The total Owis number 7,751. Each Owi is made up of 4 lines. After being blessed by Lord Rama, he wrote the old Dasbodh. One finds the freshness, fearlessness, and candidness of a person, blessed with the ultimate knowledge, just recently in it. After a while he started with the continuation of the work, and completed up to the 7th dashak, to which he added the dashak he had written earlier, called the dashak of knowledge. Then throughout his life he continued writing for the Dasbodh, which amounted to another 12 dashaks. These were added to the earlier 8 ones, and the final volume of the Dasbodh as we know it now, was prepared just 2 months prior to the time when Shree Samarth left his mortal body. At the end of the book, he has as always very unassumingly, yet candidly asked the readers to study, ponder over, introspect, and not just only read the whole Dasbodh. That is vintage Shree Samarth for everyone. The philosophy of Shree Samarth as mentioned in the Dasbodh. There are many facets to the work of a great man and a saint, so they were to the work of Shree Samarth also. Some of them were of a temporary nature, as they were based upon the needs of that particular time. in the tide of time naturally they have vanished. Others were everlasting, which were meant for that purpose only, as he wanted to re-establish the waning morals, ethics, and virtues. These works have stood the test of times, and not only that, their worth has in fact increased with the passage of time. Shree Samarth established many muds, organized the spiritual leaders, erected temples of the Hanuman, celebrated many festivals, and wrote a lot about the contemporary issues. Unfortunately, in today's times, these things have been relegated to historical and cultural archives. The Dasbodh has remained a beacon of light for people who want to lead a thoroughly complete life. It remains a timeless wonder of literature. Shree Samarth was of the firm opinion that the philosophy which doesn't originate from the experiences of life, and doesn't explain the true meaning of life, is fruitless. The fact is that life is a continuous process, but human life is incomplete and full of obstacles. This is one of the main causes for the grief that the humans have to endure during their lifetime. The human body inherently possesses the power of living a godly, happy life. Shree Samarth therefore insists many times in the Dasbodh that every human being should use these inherent powers, not only to make his own life happy, but others too. Life by nature is free-flowing like a river, but we force it to change the flow or to change its pace. This happens because of our thinking that I am nothing else but my body. This leads to duality between the body and the Atman. This leads to all the complications. Herein one develops pride in oneself, and the lustful feeling of mine. That makes you terribly selfish, and a person with a myopic view. These vices fight within yourself to destroy you. As a result, in the personal life and the society, no one gets peace and happiness. Shree Samarth many a times in the Dasbodh tells that the only solution to this problem is following the path of spiritualism. Spiritualism is nothing but living life for the God, while constantly remembering Him. The God is the timeless flame of knowledge, which resides everywhere in the universe, which is unbreakable, complete in every imaginable sense, is the source of light making the luminescent glow, and hence is the cause of all the visible and the invisible. He resides in our heart, is our Atman, and is everything for us. The Atman is with us, right from the time of our birth till death, in each action or inaction. Therefore it is possible to leave anything and everything in our life, but it is well nigh impossible to leave our Atman. All our problems have emanated from the fact that we have forgotten our Atman, and have paid all the attention to the body. If we succeed in remembering the Atman all the time, we will also come to know the continuous flow of life. Shree Samarth says that leading a family life and leading a spiritual life are not different forms of leading a life. They are merely two different views of looking at the free-flowing life. According to him, it is foolish to separate family life and spiritualism. Both of them can and should go hand in hand. He even says that a sannyasi who is disillusioned with the family life has the right given by the religion to advise those leading family life on matters where they seek it. Hence, leading a family life and becoming a sannyasi are the two sides of the same coin. To gain a proper perspective of both, one needs to metamorphose one's own mind to completely change one's view of life, wherein he sees both sides of the coin simultaneously, and what is more important, understands the interrelationship between them. Our life itself is a continuous sadhana. The life, as already said, is free-flowing, but is obstructed by our pride, the feeling of me, and also the feeling that it is me who is doing all these things, which in turn divides this flow, leading to duality. This finally leads to waves of disturbances in the free-flowing life. The vice of pride is bemising. It has an end, so has the mind, but the combination of both try to capture the God, which obviously is impossible. It can be understandable if one tries to get something by himself, which he doesn't possess, but not putting his heart out for getting something, which is well within himself, is a sign of foolishness. The pride goes on vanishing by the continuous remembrance of the God, the life becomes free-flowing, you do your job, but without ascribing it or crediting it to me. This is sort of golden sadhana. Shree Samarth calls this as the self-realization, the consequence of which is effortless samadhi, and all of it culminates into appearance of the Parbrahma for you to experience. It is the gift of the God, and the Guru. In the effortless samadhi, you are not there in the body, which is occupied finally by the Parbrahma. Whatever the outside world perceives as being done by you, is in fact done by the Parbrahma. One who by effort kills the feeling of me, experiences a peculiar contradiction. In the earlier phases of sadhana, one is very enthusiastic about doing it, but it is his me who has to do it. After a point of time, when he does the sadhana correctly as told by his guru, he realizes the abstract principle, that unless he sheds off this me, he would never get to the God. He is again confronted with an insurmountable difficulty, for the solution, of which he approaches his guru. His total surrender to the God. And the guru leads to their blessings, leading to the effortless sadhana, the fruit of which is Parbrahma. Shree Samarth firmly believes, that once the me in you goes away from your mind, the God enters there and you then become the temple of the God yourself. At this stage your life becomes utmost pious, utterly unselfish, and totally meant for others. Your life becomes seamlessly happy from within and without, and the reflections of that are seen in the lives of others, who are in your company. Shree Samarth advises that such people should actively organize the society, and cajole them to adopt the correct path in their lives, so that everybody gets the same outcome, as the fruit of their efforts. He also says that a family man, who after great efforts attains a stage, wherein he can have self-realization, and can go into the state of samadhi, is a great boon for the society, for he is fully capable of taking the whole of the society along with him. It is also easier for the society, to get the company of such people very easily. Shree Samarth says that it is always better to have more people being introduced to the real knowledge, than to have only a very few having the knowledge of the Parbrahma. Therefore it is the responsibility of those, having the knowledge of the Parbrahma, to take the society along with them, on the right track. In the Dasbodh, Shree Samarth every now and then advocates that, when you are destined to perform the duties of the family life, you must do that, but never forget, that your ultimate aim is to attain Parbrahma. In other words, although for others you seem to be totally involved in the family, deep inside you, you are always in the quest of the Parbrahma. He tells in the Dasbodh, that if you look at the life with a myopic view, it seems to be materialistic, whereas with a spiritual view it is all God, Parbrahma, and the Guru. In the history of the mankind, one very rarely finds a sage like Shree Samarth, who has so beautifully mended the family life with the spiritual, materialism with sannyas, enchantment, and the feeling of being distant from everything except the truth, the feeling, that I am doing everything and that he is getting it done through me, and personal life with the social one. The signs of the greatness of Shree Samarth are evident every now and then in the Dasbodh, both about his knowledge of the Parbrahma, and his illuminating life. Despite being a great saint himself, he was always in search of ways and means for the betterment of the common man, and the society. Looking at all, this one just submits oneself to him with the utmost respect, and this in fact becomes a medium to get to see him in all his facets. Jaya Jaya Raghuveer Samarth Ha.
Chanting Nation for meditation. Subscribe today for all types of RT's mantras, stotras, and don't forget to press the bell icon.